Arisa.
Thank you, Steve. Good evening, everybody. My name is Arisa, and I'm most definitely an alcoholic. The date of my last drink was October the 13th, 1993. And although today I am very, very grateful for that, I promise you on October the 14th, I was not very grateful for that back in 1993. I did not come to Alcoholics Anonymous one day because I thought, oh, it's a beautiful sunny day, beautiful autumn day. I should, stop drinking and go to AA. That's not my story. And I'm not going to get as much into my story about how I got here tonight, but, I am a drinker's drinker. I am a girl who drinks for proof. And I love the way you guys started the meetings. And I want to, first of all, thank you for inviting me to be with you. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Ryan and Nancy, for reading. I love the way you started the meeting off with the readings that you did, and the meditation and the set aside prayer. Those are all things that are very, very close to my heart. I've been so blessed to have some incredible teachers in Alcoholics Anonymous over the years. And I got to tell you, no one was betting on this horse when I walked in the doors of AA. Nobody thought, oh yeah, she's going to make it. That's not my story. So if you don't think, that if you don't think you got a good chance, I'm one of those, the idea of me not drinking for 27 plus years is nuts. I got to say, it's just nuts. It wasn't supposed to be like this, because when I got to you, the most painful thing in my life was sobriety. I hated being sober. I know a lot of people come to AA because they have a drinking problem, and I get that. But I didn't come to AA because I had a drinking problem. I came to AA because I didn't think I was going to die. I couldn't get out of the pain, and this was literally for me the last house on the block. I did everything else that I knew how to do before coming to you, because I didn't want what you have. You have sobriety, and I didn't want that. Sobriety sounds like nails on a chalkboard. Who wants to be sober? Seriously, it was a good idea for like church people, but not, no. So, when I came to you guys, and just like so many people, we walk in the doors and people, you see the steps up on the wall and you go, no, and, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Like, no. When I walked in the doors, I was looking for people to make amends to me, right? Like the world had done me wrong. I was a victim in, God, my name should have been up in lights. I was such a good victim. Okay. I am an official victim in the state of Texas. Okay. I was born and raised in Corpus Christi, Texas. And, within 6 months of when I started drinking, I was in a bar on 6th Street and I got abducted and raped out of that bar. So when I say I'm literal legal status of victim, right? And that gives you all kinds of cool perks, in the state's eyes, which is something that I wore like a badge for a long time. If what had happened to you if what had happened to me had happened to you, you would drink too. If what had happened to me had happened to you, this was my get out of jail free card, and I also grew up in a very violent home, a lot of abuse, stuff like that. Dad was a total rageaholic. My mom's the adult child of an alcoholic. Dad's the adult child of a missionary. This is not a good combo, not a great, not a great cocktail. And it was an explosive, toxic home. It really was. And, so I was very clear on the fact that the world and its people were often quite wrong, right? It says that in our fourth step that, but that's as far as most of the shipwreck. The book agrees. It's not saying that bad things didn't happen to me. It did. You're right. There are bad people in the world. There are things that should not happen. You're absolutely right. The only problem is you're going to die. Right. So the only reason that I did what you guys wanted me to do was, I was trying to treat my alcoholism without even knowing I was trying to treat my alcoholism. I'm going to therapy. I'm taking religion classes. I'm, doing yoga. I'm vegan. I'm going to South America. I'm paddling up the Amazon in a canoe and swimming with piranhas. I can put my legs behind my head, but right. And I remember somebody saying to me once, like, I don't get it. How, you're so healthy, but then you drink. I'm like, well, everybody needs some vice or you'd hate me, right? Like, I can't be sober, right? I hate that feeling of me on me and nothing I could do. There's nothing wrong with therapy. Don't get me wrong. Therapy, and I've done a lot of therapy, since coming into the rooms too, but it didn't treat my alcoholism. Right? It didn't treat my alcoholism. And the only thing that I didn't even understand what was going on with that. So, when I was taken through the steps, by somebody who really understood this book, right? Who helped me to get to the futility and the fatality of what was going on, right? That if I have a resentment, that although you may have been wrong, the problem is not what you did, it's what I'm doing with it. And resentment is like an infection, right? Anger is an emotion, and it's healthy. It gets you to do something. It gets you to get away from, the thing that's going to injure you. The only problem is that I don't have anger like normal people have anger. I enjoy my anger. I enjoy it like some people enjoy, a drink. I guzzle, right? But I enjoy anger like some people would enjoy a fine meal. I relish it. I savor it. I look forward to it. I go back to the ones I love, right? This is me. Like, you gotta get a lot of mileage out of these things, guys. I mean, come on. When my husband gets angry, he's a normie, God bless him, okay? He gets angry about something, he gets really angry, and then he's over it, and he doesn't come back to it. And I'm like, you could milk this for more, come on, you're missing out. I savor this stuff, right? And that's what my inventory was all about. So when I get to 8 and 9, I don't, before my 5th step, I didn't want to get to 8 and 9 because I don't want to stop being the jailer. Because there are 2 people that get involved in any resentment. The person in jail and the person who makes sure they're in jail. And I had signed myself up to be the jailer for certain people in my life, right? I have to make sure that you're going to suffer. Right. And as I'm doing this inventory and they're getting me to see this from a different perspective, right? Because we're a new pair of glasses, right? That the world and its people were often quite wrong was as far as most of us ever got. It's as far as I wanted to go. Let's be honest. Who wants to look at them? Who's looking forward to the, self-searching and sacrifice that a successful, trip through the steps is going to mean. Not me. I don't want to be rid of myself. Selfishness is what got me, the only thing that kept me safe for a while. It worked for a long time. It really did. Right. But by the time I got through my 5th step, I had been faced with the futility and the fatality. And that's what got me willing to do 6 and 7. Right. And I had this idea in my head. If you try harder, you can do better. Right. That's not what AA says. It's not what AA says. It's not what it teaches us. I come from the school of thought, from the lineage that says, you don't work on your character defects because, honey, when you work on your character defects, all you do is make them worse. Now you need to stop. You got to give them to God. They're not yours. They're God's, right? It's God's deal, right? My job is to be in this place where I'm like, okay, if you really want to get rid of your character defects, go to 8 and 9. Get busy in 8 and 9. That's what I was taught, that my job, as Chuck Chamberlain says, that we rub away the wreckage with good works, right? If karma is your doing, what am I doing to rebalance this thing? That's the essence of 8 and 9, right? So, it's funny how, you ever notice like sponsors don't tell you more than they want you to know? Yeah, they kind of know you aren't going to read the book very carefully. So, just a heads up, read the book. It'll give you those spoiler alerts. We all go, why didn't you tell me? It's in the book. It's in the book, right? Now, one of those is that, now we need more action. Without it, I'm on page 76. Without which we find that faith without works is dead. Let's look at steps 8 and 9. We have a list of all persons we have harmed and to whom we are willing to make amends. I do. We made it when we took inventory. That's not fair. You didn't tell me I was doing my 8-step list when I was doing my 4-step list. And by the end of 5, I should be willing. And that's what 6 and 7 is also all about, right? We made it when we took inventory. It's there. All the person. See, my sponsorship lineage likes the little words. I don't know about yours, but my sponsorship lineage likes the little words. Little words like all. Made a list of all. Like, made directions to them all. Like, how about the ones that I think deserve? Right? No. All. Even the ones that did more harm to me, in my opinion. That's what all means. All. And the great thing is, like, you hear a lot about people talking about my part in AA. So, that's not actually in the 4th step. It's not it's not language I use. Okay. Because my belief is that, if this is a whole, right, and I'm looking for my part, this is going to be my part. But I never forget about this. I never forget about what you did, right? So I'm supposed to disregard the other person entirely. How do you do that? By resolutely looking for my own mistakes. The inventory is mine, not the other man. The other guy's wrong. He's wrong. The world and its people are often quite wrong. I'm right. I'm right about that. The book agrees with me. The book, you're right. They're wrong. Okay, fine. The only problem is it's going to kill you. It's going to kill you. We're not talking about saying they're off the hook. They're off the hook with me, okay? My 5th step was all about, for the first time in my life, I'm starting to want to be on the hook. And that's what 8 and 9 are all about. For the first time in my life. You see, the difference between making amends and making an apology is kind of this polite, confession, maybe, like that happened. Okay. It's a mental agreement. To make amends, right, is to fix it. So if I have a rip in my shirt, right, I mend it as if the harm had never happened. That's the goal of amends, right? So when I'm going back and I'm looking at this list, the list I've already made, oh my God, this was, like I said, what an order, I can't go through it, right? This list that I have of all these people, right, that I resented. And my sponsor told me if you resented them, that I'd done them spiritual harm. All the people, the things I was afraid of, right? Not to mention, the actual harms. And then I was also, it says, I walk back through my life at this point, right? Making sure that I have this list really complete. And then I'm at this place where I want to be on the hook. Because what I've finally realized is that every time I have compromised my principles, I've lost a piece of me. I lose a piece of my soul every time I compromise my principles. I don't get in a lot of trouble by compromising your principles. I really don't. It doesn't bother me. Whether Steve likes the way I'm living or not, I'm going to sleep okay tonight. It's really fine. It doesn't bother me. But it does bother me when I compromise my principles. Even when you tell me it's okay, I don't feel okay about it. So it doesn't matter. Have you ever had a principle you don't agree with yourself, but yet it's there? I didn't know. Those are the ones that are really annoying. The things that I do that I tell myself intellectually it should be fine, but they're still bothering me. I've had people come to me with, decades of sobriety. And one of the first questions I ask somebody when I'm sponsoring somebody who's got some time is, who's left on your 8-step list? And so often they come to me with these people. Well, my sponsor said I don't need to make amends to these, right? These over here, but yet they tell me about them because it's still in their heart. It's still in their heart. right? If it's done, it's done, right? That's all I got to say about it. It's not my job to, grade your 8-step list. It's just not. It's not my job, right? And then there's this whole debate, like, do you put yourself on the list? Do you not put yourself on the list? Whatever. Honestly, I don't care what you do. I don't care what you do. My path was, I was taught not to put myself on the list. However, what I was taught is that it's my piece of paper, which means it's my list. And if you want to make real amends to yourself, go make all your amends to everybody else. Because that's how I go back and pick up all the little pieces of my soul. That's how I go back and put myself back together and become this woman that God created, right? That's what we're really looking for, right? How do I become the woman that, God has asked me to be? How do I become that person? And it's not about going out and getting new stuff. It's about uncovering, discovering, and discarding. It's just about taking out the garbage. That's all. If I take out the garbage, I'm left with the child of God that was born here, right? You ever notice babies are always laughing? They're happy. They fall down and they wait to see what mom does, right? If mom laughs, baby laughs. If mom goes, ah, baby goes, ah, and starts crying, right? We teach them this stuff, but they start out happy, right? And this is where I'm trying to get back to. That's what the purpose of amends really are. So, the first thing that says, if we haven't the will to do this, we ask until it comes, right? We ask until it comes. So that is the 8-step prayer right there. There's a prayer with every step. Am I willing to ask for it? It tells me over and over again in this book that I am going to need to stay in this place of being willing to go to any lengths. And so right after that, right after the prayer, it says, remember, it was agreed at the beginning, we would go to any lengths for victory over alcohol, because this is about not drinking. Okay. I know a lot of people say, it's not about drinking for me today. You know what? For me, it's about drinking. It's always going to be about drinking because I am a thirsty girl, right? And it's been a long time between drinks, way too long for a girl like me. And if you leave me restless, irritable, and discontented long enough, I know what will treat that. I know what will treat that. And it comes in a bottle, right? It comes in a bottle. And I don't decide whether or not I'm drinking. I don't. I have lost power, choice, and control, and that's never coming back. Once a pickle, never a cucumber again. It's the way it is, right? So I have to get straight on the fact that this is about not drinking. That is, if I'm going to be returned to sanity, I've got to do all the steps. And I know a lot of people who drink again after long periods of time, and almost always you hear there was somebody they weren't willing to make amends to. Okay? And if that's the case, those are people who've been really instructive to me. I believe that, if I want, the spiritual awakening that they're talking about in step 12, then I need to be making all the amends. Really make sure that I've cleaned that slate, right? I love the way it talks about in amends that, our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. I'm sure when you got here, you're thinking, hey, this AA thing is going to give me a great way to be of service to God and my fellows, right? Isn't that why you came to AA? Can't wait to be of service to God and my fellows. That just sounds like a better than Studio 54, right? Better. No, this is not what I'm thinking. I'm thinking when I walked in the door, I want you to be doing for me. I come in a ball of self, right? I'm self-absorbed. I'm self-centered. I'm full of self-pity, right? It's all about what have you done for me lately, right? I'm not a servant. You come into AA, we come in the center of the universe. And if we're lucky and we stay here long enough, we work our way up to servant. That's the goal. Who wants that though? I mean, it doesn't sound like fun. You ever notice how God's will never sounds like fun? It never sounds like fun to me. I don't know. Why lay ourselves open to be branded fanatics or religious bores? I mean, I get that thinking. That's how I saw this thing, right? Who would be stupid enough to do that? Why would I ever make amends to my dad? Why? He doesn't deserve it. He didn't deserve my amends. And that's the truth. Honest to God, I would still say today, 27 years later, he doesn't deserve me making amends to him. So why do I do it? What makes me willing? What makes me willing is that I don't like me anymore. I don't know about you, but when I walked in the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous, I couldn't stand myself. And, when I think about who's doing that talking, I can't stand myself. There's this spirit in me that doesn't like the action that this being is doing, right? I'm out of alignment with me. Those are my principles. And like I said, when I compromise my principles, I can't live that way. Can't live that way. So I go back through my life and I start to realize that you can't make me do anything. I thought that, because my family installed these buttons, right? That if you pushed those buttons, you got an automatic reaction. I just punched you in the nose, right? I am going to defend myself. I have boundaries, right, that are being crossed. I don't use the word boundaries anymore, because in AA, we don't protect ourselves. We have responsibilities, right? But it's my job to follow God's will. God's my protector, right? AA is not, I've never been in a place that's less self-help than AA. Have you ever known, we're not a self-help program. We're just not. It's like you walk in the door and you're like, I'm here to fix myself. And they're like, uh-oh, oh, you're in the wrong place, right? If you're here to stop fixing yourself, have a seat. That's the deal. Have a seat if you want to stop trying to make it. All I'm doing is making it worse, right? And so they tell me that my job is to go out and find a way to fit myself to be of maximum service to God and my fellows, right? How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done, it says in step 10. So I'm going out and I'm looking at these amends and I'm thinking, they owe me more than I owe them. My dad owes me more than I owe them, by far. And my sponsor said, you know what? You don't have to worry about anything that he's done. If in the whole scenario, he's got 99.99999, right? And you have 0.0001% of whatever happened. That's all you have to make amends for is the 0.001. That's it. And the thing I began to realize is that what I thought I was supposed to, when I wrote this inventory to her, things like, dad ripped my clothes off of me in public and, completely. And, this is something I carried with a lot of shame, a lot of shame that he had literally taken, ripped my clothes off of me in front of an audience, right? Including my underwear, and then beaten me, right? And this was a big deal, right? I mean, no one should ever be treated that way, okay? So I don't, when I read this piece of inventory, I said to my sponsor, I said, and I guess, what I did was I antagonized him. She said, how old were you? I said, I don't know, 13, 14. She said, you were a child. There's nothing you could have done to deserve that. She said, but what are you using it today to do? Because that's where it really matters. That's what it is. You see, I turned every problem in my life today to having, going back to those roots. And I'm the one that replayed those things and replayed those things and replayed those things. And I created my father as this incredible villain. And my dad had incredible power in my life, right? And it was because I fed this idea that he was so powerful. I hadn't lived at home. I moved out as soon as I graduated from high school. I never went back, right? Never went back. And I got sober when I was 21. So how is it my father, who I haven't lived with in years, is still responsible for what's going on today? He can't be. He can't be, but I want him to be. I'm assigning the blame in my life for what's not right because of what happened in the past. Now, I'm not saying there wasn't damage done. There was, but the worst of the damage was done by me, self-inflicted, rewatching it in my mind, these video clips that I have, the stories I'm telling myself, and I'm punishing all kinds of people for what my, father did and this other guy who abducted me did. All these people are, you know, I don't want to take responsibility for the fact that, I could be different, right? I could be different. Life could be different. I don't want to take responsibility for that because I love being angry. Like I said, I love being angry. It gives me all of this energy. I don't want to let go of it, because if I let go of it, my whole motive in life is gone. I mean, I'm an artist, okay? I don't know if you guys saw the flyer. Steve was really sweet. That's my artwork in the background of the flyer, if you saw it. I'm a professional pyromaniac, okay? I paint with fire. That's what I do for a living, okay? Like, really, literally. And, it, so you see, like, artists are supposed to be miserable, aren't they? I mean, it's my job to be angst-ridden and, grumbly and dark and all this, right? So that's the way I saw it. Okay. And, there's a lot of, I thought that, this was this attached to who I was. Right. And so if I make amends to my dad, who am I going to be? What am I going to be? If I let go of this stuff, you can't make art about nice things, can you? I mean, no one wants pretty art. You want deep, dark, painful stuff, right? God, so there was a lot of these ideas that I had in my head. My sponsor said that, these were my get out of jail free cards, right? My trump cards. How am I using it today? Right. So when I got to this point, I started to see the futility and the fatality, because what I thought was working really wasn't, right? And the truth is, I wanted to think of myself as a good person, as a nice person, but I wasn't. I really wasn't. I was angry. I was vengeful. I was not fun to be around. I was controlling. I was every bit as bad as the people that I condemned. And if I wanted to be different, well, I had to actually be different. I mean, I want the reputation without having to change. I don't know if you can identify with that, but so the way I live, I began to realize, makes so much noise. It didn't matter what is. See, I thought I was better. My father's never apologized for anything. I've never heard my dad apologize for anything, or my mother, or, my sisters. I mean, they don't, my family doesn't apologize. It's like, you probably deserved it anyway. It's all about trying to tell everybody how they deserved what they got. And so that's the way I function too. And I began to be, and sitting with these ideas that my sponsor gave me about, things like, what would it be like for them to have experienced you, right? If you had to be in a relationship with yourself, what would that be? I mean, I don't know about you, but God bless my husband. I would be divorced if I was married to me. I mean, I don't know. So I'm not an easygoing person. I'm just not, and so the way I began to see, like, the way I live makes so much noise. They can't actually hear what I'm saying, because I'm good at saying I'm sorry. When I say I'm sorry, when I make an apology, what I'm really saying is, please excuse my bad behavior, right? When I make amends, I'm saying I'm ready to be on the hook. I am ready to be for the first time in my life, I want to be on the hook. I am willing to do whatever it takes to make this right. Okay? Because if you don't like yourself, it's probably, there's good reason, is what I was told, like, who would like what I was doing? It wasn't pretty. It just, the way I treated people, it wasn't pretty. There was nothing likable about that. And so as I went back and I started making these amends, I began to look myself in the eye a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. Right. And, this idea of, what do they need to hear? Right. What do they need to hear? How have I aggravated the defects of others? Right. Maybe I have some role in all of this. It says, we're here to sweep away our side of the street. It doesn't matter what the other person does or doesn't do. The other person's, not discussed. Their wrongs are not discussed at all. How about, really? Because, again, my way of making amends is something along the lines of, I'm really sorry I was a, because you were a you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't have done that if you hadn't forced my hand, right? And my sponsor taught me that, although your family did wire that button, you have the ability to go back and rewire it so that when they punch that button, it doesn't work anymore. And I'll give you some current experience, okay? My mom died about a year and a half ago, just before the summer before COVID, and she'd been sick with cancer for 5 years. And when I got here, to be truthful, I was more angry at my mother than I was at my father because she didn't save me. And there were a lot of things that, she did that were just in my mind, just wrong. She was not an ideal mom. She has like no mom genes. I don't know, she used to say, like she didn't want kids. And she made sure we knew that, right? She liked us once we were grown up. Okay. But, as far as being a mom, not so much. And, when I started making amends to my mother, like I never let my mother me. I never let my parents, either of them, ever parent me because I didn't think they were qualified. I never thought they were qualified. When I was in preschool, I remember this like a video clip. I go to my mother because my father had been hitting me. And I said, Mom, Daddy's hitting me. And she arched her eyebrow and she said, and what have you done to deserve it? And so I learned right then and there, you never ask for help, right? Never. Because help is not going to come. Help is not going to come. So I never asked for help for anything ever again, right? And so as I start to, work on these amends, right, I'm being told that I need to let my mother be a parent. Now, I moved out and my mother never wanted to be a parent. And, how do you do that? How do you build a relationship with somebody who, you really don't have much in common with? They haven't been very nice to you. And what do you do, right? And I started to get to see with both of my parents, what have they done right? My sponsor made me make a list. What have they done right? And I had one thing on the list for my dad. He taught me to draw. That was where my amends to my dad began. What could I see that he was doing right? And this idea of making direct amends. So my father is the kind of person, if you go and you say to him, I'd already spent years screaming to everybody before I got sober about what my father had done. After I was abducted and raped, I began screaming about what had been done to me. So that was the real wreckage, that I had with my father. And how do I clean that up, right? I had never once stopped to say what he had done right. I'd never stopped to see, how he had tried to be there. I'd never stopped any of, to have a relationship. I just dismissed him. I treated him like he didn't deserve anything, right? Common decency. And so it began with just, noticing what they're doing right. And then giving them opportunities to participate in my life, sharing pieces of my life with them, right? And making amends to my dad was harder than to my mom, which is reasonable. But he didn't want to sit down and do the whole official, kind of amends. And what I was taught again is that, what it says in the book is that the sincere desire to set right the wrong, that's what they're going to be more interested in a real demonstration of that in my life, right? Than of talk of spiritual discoveries, So my dad didn't, it took him over 20 years to believe that I shouldn't drink, even though he'd seen some of the worst of my drinking, right? He would say things like, I don't understand why you can't have a glass of wine with your husband, right? And stuff like that. I didn't know how to go about this because he didn't want to sit down. He never wanted to have one of those conversations again. Okay. So it started to be this, being on the hook, taking responsibility for when things go right, set him up for success. How do I create a situation where he could do something that could be noticed and everybody could feel good about, right? And I had a nice conversation with my father today. And I didn't know that. I never would have thought that could have been possible, right? And I was in the beginning, that line in the 12 and 12 on page 85 where it says, let's not talk prudence while practicing evasion. Right? That was where I started with my dad. I'm just not going to, he was one of my no nevers, right? That he was one of my no-nevers. But if I'm going to be of maximum service to God and my fellows, it was told to me, like, I don't get to not make amends to my dad. The question is not if, it's how. It's how. I don't have a part in what happened as a child that needs to be cleaned up. I have punished him, though, on a level, and I've punished other people on a level, right? So how can I show them something different? How can I show them respect? Because if they don't want me to sit down, I don't care how much time you write out the perfect amends to somebody. If all you do is say it, it doesn't mean anything. They've heard me talk forever, and then they see me do it again. Right? I need to change. I need to be the change. I need to actually fix it. I need to give him a daughter back. Not because he deserves it. Not because he deserves it, because, I get to be the woman that God made me. What is the daughter I want to be today? What do I want to teach my kids? So I have a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old, right? What do I want them to see a daughter being? So I'm suiting up, I'm showing up, I'm taking them to meet my parents, spend time with my parents. I'm being a good daughter. I call my parents. I show up and really do this deal. I am the woman that I think God wants me to be today. Right? Through this, my mom's sickness and everything, I'm going down there on a regular basis, and I've been doing this for years. I'm the person who was there through hurricanes and all of that stuff. I'm the person, when there's a problem, she can call me. She can depend on me. I have been a dependable, show up a minimum 2 weeks a year with her, with my family, dragging them, across the country to spend time with her. That's what she cared about. She doesn't get this stuff. She doesn't want to hear this stuff. Okay, it's fine, but let's see, what are you actually doing, right? Learning to say things like, I'm wrong. That was a big deal. That was a big deal for me. Nobody in my family ever says I was wrong, right? Nobody. But really coming from a place where I can also say, you could be right. You could be right. Maybe I don't know what it's like to walk in your moccasins, right? Do I really, really want to be on the hook? Do I really want to create an opportunity for a relationship here? Am I willing to do this? And how do I do that? Right? And so in the last year of my mother's life, I was down there a lot. I was down there for Mother's Day. I spent her last Mother's Day with her. I was there for Easter. I was there, I'm the one that put her in hospice. Right? I've been the dependable daughter. I've been the one who suits up, shows up, and really demonstrated my love to her. Right? I'd spent years doing things like calling her and say, Mom, how do you roast a chicken? Because she's good at cooking, right? I mean, that was something I never let her teach me. So, I'm trying to let her be a mom, because what I said in my amends was just the surface. It's just the beginning. And you can make it as beautiful and flowering as you want, but try doing it for 27 years, right? When my mom died, we'd had 25 good years of me suiting up and showing up and being different. My father, 27 plus years, I've been suiting up and showing up and being different. I catch him being good. I catch him being good today. Instead, we are great at noticing. Have you ever we are great at noticing. We watch everybody. And it's a great day for an alcoholic when you do something wrong. It gives me a lot of, I got something to do. My mind can really grab hold, and I can. Should have been in soap opera writer, maybe. I can create drama with almost nothing. I mean, if you know my story, I get drama. Okay. I can make lots of drama. All right. And, to not be that, to not hold a grudge, to not be a grudge holder. My God, what an amazing thing. And my family's nuts. They're still nuts. Okay. So near the end of my mom, like I said, I put her into hospice, and the next thing I know, so when you set up a hospice, and those of you don't know, hopefully, since I'm the one that does it, they call me to let me know if anything's changing. Now, I'm not the one that lives closest. My two other sisters live much closer. And my older sister is, Well, she makes my control issues look like I don't have control issues. Okay. So, um, and we're really close in age. We're Irish twins, and she's always had a thing about she's the older one, and I'm stepping on her toes and stuff like that. And I didn't choose to put my mom in hospice. She was ready to do it. I was the one there, and that's why I did it. Right? It was very clear with them, like she's going to be your main contact person. But they call me, and they're like, this is changing or that's changing, and I tell my mother about this, and the next thing I know, my sister's got my mom thinking that I'm trying to run the show, which for once in my, like, honest to God, like I'm trying not to run the show, right? Because I've learned that I'm a slow learner, but I have learned. So part of my amends to my sister is to step back and let her. I mean, she wants to do it. Okay, great. I mean, I'm not saying I'm willing to do whatever my mom asks me to, but I'm not pushing, right? So anyway, the next thing I know is I'm getting chewed out by my mother and my sister because, the hospice people called me, and I'm like, I didn't call them. Okay. And then the next thing I know, I get an email. My sisters moved my mother up to Houston. Okay. And overnight. And I get an email on Monday that says, if you want the things from mom's house that she said you could have, you can come on Thursday from noon till Friday on noon. And I live in Boston. Okay. And to get to Ingleside, Texas, if there's, a straight shot with no delays and, a perfect, connecting flight and all that, minimum 7.5 hours. Okay. 7.5 hours each way, right? And I can't get a moving company set up in, like, this is Monday night, like gotta be there Thursday. Can't get a moving company. I've had 2 back surgeries. Okay. And so I responded and I said, could I have a little more time? I can't get anybody lined up. And they're like, my mother's response was, I know you've got problems, but I'm more important. So if you want it, come. Okay. So I go. And I can't get anybody to help me. I've rented a U-Haul and I've got a storage unit, and my 81 or 2-year-old dad at the time is helping me carry furniture, which neither of us should be doing this, but this is what I got. I don't know anybody else down there, right? So this is what we're doing. And the next thing I know, the police are there. My mother has called the police on me. I can't make this stuff up. You cannot make this stuff up, right? And the old me would have really been able to, like, make something. I mean, come on, who does this to somebody, right? I mean, there's a lot of mileage. Okay, a little bit of mileage on AA maybe. It's fun to talk about, to be honest. It's kind of like, wow, really, that's crazy. It's like a bad soap opera. But when the police show up, right, what I do is I tell the truth, because I've made those amends. Because you've taught me how to be, somebody who's kind and loving and respectful and all of these things. And I'm talking to them and simply tell them what happened. I said, my mom is in hospice in Houston. I don't know who called you. My mother, as far as I know, can't really speak. So I know that you think it was my mother, but I've been told she can't speak on the phone. I haven't physically spoken on the phone to her in quite a while. I get an email here and there, but I don't know who called you. This is my father. This is what's been asked of me, and, I don't know what's going on. And they said, well, they were so nice. They said, just finish up as quickly as you can. So we do. And it's, 11 o'clock at night when we get finished, and, I get home, get back to the hotel, and I'm looking, my mother has now fired my husband, who has been managing her money for over a decade, right? For my stepfather, and for free, right? He's fired her. They've moved all the accounts. She's rewriting a will, all this, da, 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 da. I'm getting, like disowned, whatever, and it's just all hell breaks loose, right? All hell has broken loose because I don't know what I did. I really, honest to God, don't know what I did, but I can tell you what I didn't do. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I didn't do anything except call my sponsor. And I asked for her care and direction. Well, what do? I don't know how to, this is a situation which would baffle anybody. Let's be honest. Who the heck knows how to deal with this, right? No, I don't know. But what I didn't do was I didn't get mad. I didn't get even. I didn't go crazy. I didn't do those things. I didn't do anything I would need to make amends for later. And I got to respond to my mother and say, I don't know what I did that has upset you, but I really, honest to God, like, I love you, and I'm only trying to do what you ask. That's it. right? And nothing else. And she won't speak on the phone to me or anything, right? And then a few weeks later, she speaks to my husband, right? And she tells my husband she'll talk to me. So she talks to me for about 3 minutes, in which time she's very defensive. And I said, Mom, I'm only calling to say I love you. I hope that you're adjusting well. I don't need to say anymore. What more is there to say? And when she died, my father-in-law was also dying at the same time. All of a sudden, his was sudden, mom's was long. They died within a week of each other. So I couldn't be there at my mother's bedside. My sister texted me to say, if you want to come say goodbye, come now. And I'm like, I can't, because I have somebody else dying right here and 2 kids to take care of. And I can't, can't be there. And it was the right thing, because if I'd been there, if I dropped everything, well, first of all, what would have happened here? But even there, the truth is, I think I would have been more of a cause for confusion. My sister was just very angry. My sisters have not been great. And, my sister texted me to tell me my mother died the day after she died. And I found out that it was the day after she died at the funeral. They scheduled the funeral knowing that Charlie was dying, and when, I got the information about the funeral, I said, I don't know if I'll be able to come because Charlie is fighting for his life right now. And I don't know what's going to happen. He said, well, hope you can make it. Here's the miracle. I mean, Charlie died the day before I needed to go to my mother's funeral. That's not the miracle. But I got on a plane. It took my family, and we got on a plane and we went to this funeral. We show up, and that's when I find out, that my mother died the day before. And there's not even a seat for me. Okay. There's not even a seat for me. And not once did I make a scene. What I did do was I went to a meeting with Alcoholics Anonymous that morning. Okay. And I told them what was going on. And 2 ladies I'd never met spent the entire day with me so that I didn't need to make amends for anything else. And I sobbed and I cried, and I didn't need to take anything from anyone there. I didn't need to say, how dare you? I didn't need to debase myself. I didn't need to compromise my principles. I got to be the daughter that I wanted to be, right? I didn't have to aggravate the defects of somebody else. I didn't, it says in the 12 and 12, that having decided exactly what personality traits in me have injured or disturbed others, that I can now ransack memory for the people to whom I have given offense. Right? That's from page, I don't know, 85 or something like that. And, that's what I've done. I've really gotten in touch with my character defects, right? And asked God to remove them. And then I have demonstrated that in my life over and over and over again. Their faults are not discussed. Mine are. That's where my focus has to be. My name is the one on the top of that list. On that page, I own that page. If you want to make amends to yourself, go make amends to everybody else. That's how this really, really works. That's how I get to fit myself to be of maximum service to God and my fellows. When it says in my morning prayers, right? The morning prayer, and each morning in meditation, I am supposed to ask my Creator to show me the way of patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. That the spiritual life is not a theory. I have to live it. And that I'm supposed to be praying for the other one's happiness uppermost in my mind. Pray for you above me, right? Pray for you above me. AA is not a self-help program. It's a we help others to get out of God's way program. That's the point. I must be rid of this selfishness or it kills me. I see so many people spending so much time writing perfect amends. That's great, but that is not the point of amends. Dr. Bob made his amends in a day. Get it done. The verbal part of it is just opening the door. It's I have to change it. The girl who came here had to drink. I had to drink. There's nothing else I could have done. So if I'm going to not drink, I have to be different. I have to have a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. All. I have to make amends to them all. I have to disregard the other person entirely, right? I have to pay all the money back. I have to remember why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because I'm going to die. The question of how to approach the man we hated will arise. That's a promise. It's a promise. I hated my father. I hated my mother. But as long as when you have that kind of hate, I am tied to them stronger than anything else. You know, my sisters have treated me terribly, and they're not, I lost almost all my family over this thing. You know, I don't even know why. But the truth is that I don't need to kick down the door and demand anything from anyone anymore. You know, I get to love them unconditionally, even if they don't love me, even if they don't want me in their life. I get to be the woman of grace and dignity that I want to be, regardless of what you do. You can't make me misbehave anymore. You don't get to pick out my clothes anymore. This is the freedom of bondage of self. You're not the boss of me anymore. They were all the boss over me. They had control of everything because I gave it to them. And by going and cleaning this up and mending it, you don't get to treat me like a puppet anymore. I have freedom today. You know, love and tolerance of others is our code. And to tolerate something, I thought it meant to like hold my breath while I allow you to misbehave. No, it's to be unaffected. They get to do what they want. You know, my sister, you know, one ran off with money, the other ran off with you. Who cares? I don't need it. No one can take away the 25 years I had with my mother. Nobody. It doesn't matter what happened in the end. I honestly think that my mom, the cancer probably got in her brain, you know, because it was like going back in time and having the mom that I'd had all those years earlier. I don't have that. That was a brief moment. That's not who my mom was. It's not the relationship that I had with her. No one can take that away from me. I spent 25 years loving my mom. I'm still loving my dad. I never would have guessed that I could have had the relationship with my dad that I have today. You know, and I've never once discussed since being sober what he's done wrong. I don't need to. And you know what? He has become kind and loving. There's a beautiful promise in here, and then I'll close. It says that they will change in time. You know, as I change, it's like a recipe. If you stop putting in the arsenic, it's no longer poisonous. You know, fancy that. If I start putting in love and sugar, that's what you put in some sugar and it gets sweeter. You know, sometimes life gives you lemons. It's just the way it is, you know, that's life. My job is to squeeze those puppy and to absolutely believe that God's got enough sugar to make anything sweet. And with that, I'm going to invite you to have a beautiful night and thank you for my sobriety. God bless you. Go in peace.
Thank you so much, Arisa.